Good afternoon and welcome to today's Regeneron Science Talent Search webinar. This is our very first webinar of the 2026 application season, and we are proud to present a 101 overview today in a format of 20 questions through the lens of those of us who run the program. I'm Allie Stiefel, the director of the Regeneron Science Talent Search for the last 8 years. And I'm joined by my colleague, Elaine Edwards, today. I'll let her give a wave. Elaine is the senior specialist of the Regeneron Science Talent Search. Together, the two of us, along with our team at Society for Science, we run every aspect of this program from top to bottom. In front of the scenes, behind the scenes, you name it, we have our hands in every pot. We create the application, we create all the rubrics, recruit the judges, the evaluators. We plan the program that happens for the top 40 finalists in March. So safe to say, hearing from us today and all throughout this season, you're in really good hands, people who know what they're talking about. And that's what makes this the only official place to get information here in our webinar series, our website, and our email. Whether you are a 2026 entrant joining us today or a supportive adult, parent, teacher, mentor, we're really glad that you're here to learn a little bit more. You can leave questions today for us in the chat. We will get to them at the end of this session. And please note, if we didn't cover what you're hoping to learn about today, in addition to emailing us or asking in the chat, we have a slew of past webinars that are still, for the most part, really relevant. And you can find them here on our YouTube page. So be sure to check those out. Like we said, today we're going to tackle this information in a 20 questions format. These really are the 20 most frequently asked questions that Elaine and I and our colleagues receive in the inbox from year to year. And so we thought this was a really good place to start. So with that, I'll kick it off with question number one. Well, what is the Regeneron Science Talent Search? And here's a quick overview of our agenda topics and question categories for today. So starting it off with the basics. Elaine, what is the Regeneron Science Talent Search?
Great question, and definitely one of our most frequently asked. The Regeneron STS is the nation's oldest and most prestigious STEM competition for high school students. It seeks to identify the nation's future leaders in STEM through a holistic review process. So as part of that, we require that entrants submit an original research project in their online application, but that application also includes things like essays, activities, recommendations, transcripts, and more. We really view each student as a whole person when looking for future leaders. And so the most important thing that we are looking for is potential.
Next, we're often asked, when did the Science Talent Search start? The program was founded in 1942. Like Elaine said, it is the oldest science competition in the United States for high school students. The program was first sponsored by Westinghouse, which you may have heard of, for the first 50 years of its existence, and then Intel for the next 20, and Regeneron for or towards the end of a 10-year contract. So the program has been around for quite some time. An interesting story, it was actually founded sort of as the result of the World's Fair that year, where the CEO of Westinghouse was chatting it up with a president of what is now Society for Science. And they were talking about how can we solve this problem that we're seeing in our country. There's a shortage of young people going into STEM fields. So they thought incentivizing this competition to identify that top talent would be the way to go. And here we are today.
And so who organizes this thing? The most important names to know here are the Society for Science and Regeneron. The Society for Science, where Allie and I work, is the over 100-year-old nonprofit. We own and produce the Science Talent Search, but we work in partnership with Regeneron. It was actually founded itself by two STS alumni and is our generous corporate sponsor. They have donated over $100 million to support the competition and our outreach programs over, as Allie mentioned, a 10-year period that started back in 2016. So could not do this work without them, and together we make the Science Talent Search happen.
That's right. It is worth noting, however, that Regeneron, while very generous to us and supports the program, especially during finals week for all kinds of speakers and events for the finalists, they are not at all involved in the judging process. They do not select top 300 students, scholars. They do not select top 40 finalists. They do not even see the rubric. So that's how seriously we take those procedures. So who is the Science Talent Search for? If you're interested today, maybe you're here because you're an eligible entrant or you're wondering if you are. Our eligibility requirement is a little bit different than some of the other STEM competitions out there. One, we are only open to high school seniors. You must be in your final year of high school, have not graduated from any other secondary educational program in order to enter. Number two, this is a domestic program. So unlike our sister competition, ISEF, the International Science and Engineering Fair, the Science Talent Search is just for students who live in the United States or are US citizens who are living abroad. So you can always email us if you're on the cusp there and need some clarification. We're happy to help, but it's really meant to be a national program. We also require that you've conducted an independent research project. For us, that means no team projects that have been conducted with other high school students. Certainly, a lot of students who enter have worked with teams of college professors, mentors, other adults. That is permitted, but work that's been conducted with other high school students is not permitted for this program. And we know that's another difference between STS and ISEF. On to the application. How do we apply?
All right, all you need to do to apply is open and complete a free online application on our website. So like Ali mentioned, she ran through all those eligibility requirements. I think another important thing to mention is that we don't have any kind of quotas or cutoffs, such as like selecting a certain number of students from a given school or category or state. So anyone who does fit those criteria is welcome to apply, and it is as easy as opening that application. The tasks of that application include things like our essays. We mentioned earlier that you'll be asked to request recommendations from teachers, supportive adults like mentors. You'll answer some questions about you and your research, and of course, submit that 20-page science research paper. Another important thing that applicants should do, however, though, before opening that application is reading through our entire rules book. That's so you can make sure that you and your research are eligible before you begin, and that you have all the necessary paperwork you need to get started.
That's right. That is super important. We know that rules book is pretty long if you've opened it before, but good news, right there on the second or third page, there's a little checklist that will help you identify what sections you really, really, really need to read. So you're not reading too much if you didn't do a project that has special rules based around it. So definitely check that out. That's a great kind of way to get the Cliff Notes version, but still thoroughly review the book. So moving on to what are the rules, and that's what we'll talk about. So we do have this official rules book. It is quite lengthy. I just recommend it if you're a student, use that nifty checklist on page 2. However, if you're an adult mentor or someone who you're not sure your project is like hyper complicated and interdisciplinary, read through the full book. The book does change from year to year. So if you have supported students in the past, heads up, we updated our PHBA rules this year. So if you worked with bacteria of any kind, and then definitely check out that section. We also add little things here and there to the human and animal rules, eligibility, that sort of thing, and also some of our rules pertaining to AI usage. So do check that out from year to year. And then later this summer in August, Elaine and I will be hosting with some colleagues who help with our rules review, a rules review mini session. So we'll be going over a couple sections of the rules book with you all, our audience, and we hope that you'll join us if you have questions about those rules.
So our application opened on June 1, but definitely a common question we receive is when is it due? This year, all application materials are due on November 6th of this year at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And that does mean all application materials. So that includes recommendations. We don't accept late materials for any reason. Again, our application period is open for about 5 months, so that is plenty of time to get things done. And you might be excited to hear that there are actually a lot of tasks that students can get done over these summer months, such as filling out your essays and demographic information. So that will really help you stay on task. We also think that's one of the reasons it's a really good idea to ask for your recommendations in advance. Your teachers are also really busy people, especially around that college application deadline in November when our application is due as well. So definitely do save yourself the heartache and communicate in advance about what they need to do. It's also a really good idea to let them know where to go if they encounter technical issues, since we do receive that customer service request pretty frequently. On the note of not accepting late materials, we also don't accept any updates made after the deadline. Your application is the only thing that our judges will assess, so do plan accordingly and put your best foot forward.
Right. All right. We are also often asked, what do you look for? What's the selection criteria? How do you make your decisions? We'll talk about the process here in a minute, just an overview of that. But in terms of what do you look for, here are basically the 4 categories of review that our evaluators will score in our rubric, but we don't really share anything beyond this. Our thesis, what we are looking for the future leaders in STEM. What that really means is we're looking for people with potential for leadership and potential for success in STEM fields. So those are really the 2 things. And when you're approaching your application, the advice we always like to give, maybe you've heard us say this before, but think about those 2 things as you're drafting your application. Maybe even make a list of how am I a leader in any capacity of my life? It doesn't have to be in STEM. And then how have I shown that I have potential to be a leader in this field or to be good at science? Because we know that, you are 16, 17, 18-year-olds, very often accomplished for your age, but sometimes opportunity or lack of opportunity gets in the way. Like maybe your school doesn't have I'm going to make robotics club that you can be the leader of, right? So we know opportunities can be limited. And so if you've shown potential in one area of your life, well, there's a good chance that's going to cross over somewhere else. So make sure you tell us about that. This is a holistic review competition. But to speak a little more directly to some of these criteria, the strength of the research is something that we look at. As Elaine mentioned, one of the big things you have to do for our application is to write a 20-page research paper. Strength of research does not mean that your research has to be novel, that it has to be published. Sometimes it is, that's great, but a lot of finalists each year, that is not the case. It's certainly not a requirement for us when we're making decisions. By strength of the research, was it a well-done project? Maybe it's something just contributing to a field that's already known or confirming information, but there's still a right way and a wrong way to do some of these things. And how have you done? The student contribution is really important. So we also know opportunity plays a role here. So some students are able to have opportunities to work in research labs. That's awesome. And some students are not, and that is perfectly fine too. And so what we mean by student contribution to the research, one, tell us what is your circumstance. We're going to ask you about that in the application, and then we'll go from there. Your mentors, if you had one, will also answer questions about this. If you didn't really have opportunity to lead your project the way maybe you would have wished because you were in an established lab, that's okay. Your mentor might still tell us they did like the best job ever, or they did a really good job. The parts I assigned to them, they were so clever and creative, even if it wasn't their idea to do that part, because that's just not how our lab works. So context becomes really important here. We definitely look at academic achievement and aptitude. Your grades are required, and that becomes something we look at. And then test scores. We are test optional. We have been for a really long time. But if, sometimes those test scores will help balance out a bad grade in a class, or you can tell us if there's a reason for it. We're looking at all those things, and we understand that you're human beings. And then your overall potential as a leader, we talked about that a bit, but it definitely plays a role in our selection. So that's basically what we're looking for. The prizes.
All right, so after submitting that long application, who makes those final decisions? Our evaluators are a pool of scientists who help select the top 300 scholars. So these comprise about 200 PhD scientists across a huge variety of fields. And each application is going to receive at least 3 and usually more reads. Your category selection, just as a note here, is really what helps us determine which of these scientists will read your application. But it is also important to know that if, for instance, your project is really multidisciplinary, as we know a ton of projects submitted to STS can be, if one of those evaluators thinks it could benefit from expertise in an additional category or needs some other eyes on it, we do have mechanisms in place to make sure that each project is reviewed by the right person to take a look at it. So don't stress that one. That's definitely a question we get a lot too. We also have a judging panel, and these are the folks who determine the finalists, the top 40. And they consist of preeminent scientists in their fields, also across a huge array of scientific expertise. I think also really important to know that all of these individuals read the entire application. And that is very much a massive undertaking. And they are so excited by the science that you're doing that they want to come back every year and do it. We could not do the work without them. And so you should know as you're submitting your application just how much they're looking forward to reading your work as well.
And then what can you win? We hope that just submitting the application feels like you've already won. We know how difficult it is to conduct research and how serious our entrants are about the work that they've done. So one, we like to honor all of the entrants who've taken that step. You're already well above the average high school student in our country. And so for that, you'll receive a t-shirt to mark that accomplishment, a 1-year subscription to Science News Magazine. That is the separate arm of our organization, but an over 100-year-old publication of all fields of science. So hopefully that continues to inspire you. Then we select 300 scholars. Each of those 300 scholars receive $2,000 as a cash award, and also their high schools receive $2,000 as well to be used for STEM activities at the school. From there, we narrow the pool down to 40 finalists. Like Elaine said, we don't accept any additional materials or perform other reviews after that deadline and the first procedure. So you do not need to send in additional material. It will not be reviewed, so don't worry. But those 40 finalists each receive $25,000, an all expenses paid trip to Washington, D.C. for the finals week competition. And we also then pick top 10 winners from that crew. So those who participate in our finals week competition, which happens in March every year, the top 10 will receive between $40,000 and $250,000. That is our first place prize. It is the largest prize in the academic community for high school students in the United States.
And so just to give maybe a more bird's eye overview of how that process looks. As we mentioned, our application opened on June 1, so we are currently in the middle of our application season. This is when you should be hard at work reading our rules and making sure your application is the best it can be. The next date you'll want to keep an eye out for is not actually our application deadline, but our technical support deadline. This comes the day before the actual application deadline on November 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have this deadline in place so that if you encounter any kind of technical issue, if you have questions that you need answers to ahead of that deadline, we guarantee a response to them as long as they are reported by this date. So again, always a good idea to make sure that you're submitting in advance if you can, but especially by this deadline. Any inquiries we receive after that time, just because of the sheer volume we receive in those last 24 hours, we can't guarantee that response. So definitely like to consider this one the actual deadline in your head. But as we've mentioned, November 6th is that hard cutoff, after which we will no longer accept any additional materials, again, including recommendations. From there, the next important date is January 7th of next year. That is when we will announce our top 300 scholars. And just a couple weeks after, we'll announce the top 40 finalists on January 21st. In between that period, we have our finalists complete something called the mega form. There's a lot of additional materials we need to get from you in order to make our finals week experience the best it can be. And that is part of the package of competing as a finalist is just your cooperation and helping us get all of that done in time for that finals week in Washington, D.C. from March 5th to 11th of this year. We will announce the top 10 winners at a gala on the Tuesday of that competition week.
That's right. I will add I guess, an 11A to this question, which is, and I guess perhaps it's not a question, but something I hear in the rumor mill quite a bit, so worth addressing. I will hear of students saying, is it worth applying to STS because the results don't come out before my college decision announcements? Yes, it is, because guess what? We share our lists under embargo and have relationships with a lot of colleges, and a lot of colleges are paying very close attention to when our information comes out. So know that it does matter. It does impact decisions. We hear this from students and from colleges every year, that they get their admissions file and they see the role that STS has played. So if you're wondering if it's worth it for you, keep that in mind. We just wanted to squash that rumor because it simply is not true. Great. So then that leads to, why is it worth it? Well, we just told you one reason. But the other reasons here are a few of our favorites that we like to tell entrants. But if you were to ask any alum of the Science Talent Search, they might give you all kinds of other fun answers. But some of the benefits that, when we've done mass surveys and market research studies, these are some of the top things that come out of it. Number one, building your community. So students who make the top 40 in particular talk about how they really did meet their lifelong friends through the Science Talent Search, through that finals week experience. It's the best week of their life at that point. They continue these relationships through college, grad school. We've even had some marriages come out of this program, interestingly enough. But really, as a professional marker, this does connect people across generations too. So the community is not just those 39, but much broader than that. It's also an opportunity to tell your story. One, because we help you tell it if you do make the top 300 or top 40 level. Our communications professionals on our team help you to do that, give you some tools to learn how to do that. But also just the experience of going through the application, learning to write scientifically, gaining some practice there will really help you in college and beyond. So for some students, they'll tell us it's the first time they've ever had to do the kind of the exercise of our application. And so that's really beneficial. And then celebrating your success. We like to treat the students who come through our program like rock stars. We know how hard that you've worked. We want you to get that recognition. And we try our best to make that happen for you. So when students are with us, the top 40 in particular, we plan a remarkable week for them. We introduce them to some of the nation's top scientists. We make sure they have experiences where they can connect with one another, do tours of some of the national labs. So we really try to make the experience educational and worthwhile for them. Some questions about the application next.
All right, so this is definitely a very common one as well. What are my chances if this is my first research project? We always like to say that whether this is your first research project or your 50th, your 100th, your chances are the same as everyone else's. That is because, as we've mentioned, STS is a holistic application. You might have had a bunch of opportunities to do research. You might have just gotten one or might have just gotten interested in something and decided to submit it. The research project is not the only aspect of our application that counts. We've been through so many of the other ones that do too, but again, what we're really looking for is potential. So if potential is something that you have, and if you were able to show it to us, you absolutely stand a chance in this competition. And we've seen tons of finalists for whom this was their first research project as well, so definitely can happen.
Do I have to have a mentor to enter? No, you do not. You will still need to submit a project recommendation. So if you really didn't have a mentor at all, We have some recommendations for you within the form that you can request a parent or a teacher to fill that out just to verify that in fact you were mentorless. And then also there are some circumstances where you really should have had a mentor for safety reasons and or liability or paperwork. So they may not have actually mentored you on the project itself, but maybe an adult did supervise your work with hazardous chemicals or something like that. So they can let us know kind of what those safety protocols may have been.
Can I enter if I'm an international student? No, as we've said, this is a domestic competition, and we do encourage international students to look into our sister competition, Regeneron ISEF. That's open to high school students across the globe. More information about that is on our website as well. And just to reiterate our own eligibility requirements, for us, you can be of any citizenship, but in that case, you have to be living and attending school full-time here in the United States, or you can be a US citizen living abroad. So those are our criteria.
And if you are applying as a US citizen living abroad, we will be collecting citizenship information. Great. Can my teammate and I both enter STS? If you have conducted team research and that's what you're hoping to submit to STS, this is a bit tricky. So no, we do not allow team projects. You cannot submit the same project. You can also not split a project in order to enter it. If we find that you have done that in all of our plagiarism checks and other integrity checks that we run on an annual basis, your project will be disqualified. So where it becomes tricky is sometimes a student continues a project beyond what the team project did. And if that's the case, then that is what can be entered. Only the new material that was conducted solo post the team project. You will be asked about this within the application, and I strongly suggest you are as honest and clear as you can be when you answer this question.
Can I submit published research? Yes, you absolutely can, but there are a couple stipulations we have about this. You should only submit published research if you are the first or sole author, and of course, if that research is in adherence to our STS rules. So sometimes other competitions have rules that can be less strict, or other journals, but again, if you're submitting it to us, it needs to abide by our rules. Lots of situations we encounter where a student has a publication, which is awesome, but they are not the first or sole author. We have a couple recommendations in those cases as well. Namely, what you should do is submit your own paper that really highlights your individual contributions to that larger research project. And then as part of that, you can and should mention within the application where we ask that published paper and how that differs from what you're submitting to our competition. And just a final note here as well, if you do choose to submit published research, it does still need to follow our formatting guidelines and our citation guidelines, which are new this year. So please do take a look at those in our rules book.
Yes, and the citation guidelines we will be enforcing and potentially disqualifying students who do not follow them. So it's very important, like Elaine said, to make sure that those images are all cited, and also sometimes, you know, a prior publication, if you're entering it kind of as is, it's not going to be the exact way that we're requesting. So do take a look at that. The other note I will add here, we have added more of a clarifying question about where your research was published. And by that, I mean, was it published in a PhD level peer-reviewed journal or a student journal? And we understand you are students, and so many of you might publish in a student journal. That's fine. Do not pretend that it's a PhD level journal. There is a difference there in terms of who's reviewing them and how you gain access. So we want to make sure that everybody is just being as honest as possible, because honesty and integrity are of critical importance in our field. So we want to start that now while you're young. All right, some tips for the application. How can I make my application stand out? A lot of ways. We talked about one earlier about kind of creating your list of who you are and how you're a leader and how you're good at science and making sure those things shine through. I also might recommend another list that you might want to create, which is what do I care about? And then making sure that when you complete your application, refer back to kind of your thesis and make sure those things are in there somewhere, right? It's easy as you kind of go through to leave out a major detail because you're so focused on this being a science thing. But make sure the things that are important to you make an appearance so that we know who you are. Following the rules is also really important. And we talked about the rules book. I also want to highlight task 3. So if you haven't opened your application yet, or you're like just getting started, the sooner you go to task 3, the better and easier it might be for you. This is our rules wizard task, and it's a series of if-then questions that will kind of guide you toward what paperwork you need for your project. So there are the rules book, which tell you kind of what is permitted and what is not. And in that rules book, it touches upon you might need this kind of paperwork if you did this kind of project. But task 3 very clearly is going to show you what is required. So if you worked with human subjects and you designed a survey for them, you're going to have to show an IRB approval. You're going to have to show a blank copy of that survey, and it's going to, you're going to answer the questions, and it's going to tell you what you need and the uploads that you need to do. So you have a little more time if you do that now to get your materials ready, all of that. Some things are harder to chase down. We hear from sad kids every year in November who say, oh no, I couldn't get my IRB approval, a copy of my IRB approval from my local science fair or my high school or whatever, because I asked the day before the application was due and I didn't know I needed it. So don't put yourself in that position. Please, see what you need early, and then you have a little more time to hunt for it. Be honest and clear. Just touched on this a bit as well. And scientific integrity is very important. So is integrity in every way. And so we ask for all kinds of disclosure, right? We talked all throughout this session about how context is really important so that we kind of know what you're working with and what you're not working with, and we can judge you fairly. We're not wanting to judge students unfairly based on what they didn't have available to them. This is why it's also really important to disclose any kind of payments of support that you've received for taking a class, like maybe even a couple of years ago that taught you some research methods, or you had a mentor who you paid. These things are acceptable and are okay, but what's not okay is when you disguise this kind of support, because then that leads to more questions. Well, what else is being hidden, right? Did they do this project? If they didn't disclose to us and we find out that there was payment involved or that you participated in a program, then it leads to other doubts. So make sure that we are getting the full story about you, and that will help everybody out. And then sharing your passion, we talked about that, but super important because this is not just a research competition, it's a holistic program. So do tell us those passions for sure.
So we've answered a ton of questions today, but we know that there are always more. Where can you go for answers to those questions? A couple different sites. One of them is going to be our competition homepage. That's societyforscience.org/Regeneron STS, and we'll have that on the last slide for you. But that's a great place to go just for general program info, as well as other guidance for students, as well as educators and other just interested community members. We do have some more in-depth FAQs available as well. Those are going to be on our application website. That's sciencetalentsearch.smapply.org. Again, we'll throw that link up for you in just a second. But if you have need for troubleshooting tips or are seeking some application advice, that's going to be your best bet, both if you're a student and if you were a recommender. We also have a ton of other additional resources. So all the official guidance that we provide here in our webinars and other documents, that's going to be located on that research page available on the application website. And finally, of course, you can always email us. You can reach out to our team at that email linked here, sts@societyforscience.org. We are always here to help. Again, as the folks who run the competition, we have the best advice available for you, and we are always happy to share it to make sure, again, that everyone is putting their best foot forward. So never hesitate to send us an email.
That's right. And then just to piggyback on that, email is the best way to reach us. We do not take customer service by phone call. One, because we want to make sure we can link to any additional resource that you have for a while. We want to be fair and consistent with our answers to students, parents, teachers, mentors. And then this allows us to get back a little bit faster and in order of when requests are made. But transparency is also really important to us in the help process. So these resources that Elaine has mentioned, maybe you click on them and you're like, whoa, that is a lot of information. Well, that's on purpose because we do want you to be self-sufficient. If you're working on, we know from what we can see that teenagers are working on this at night. Sometimes when maybe our office is closed or you want to try to find the answer yourself because you're independent. And we don't want you to give up. We want you to keep going and try, and we don't want a lack of information to get in your way. So we've made all this information open for you. What I recommend, if you're looking for a specific answer, we have all these pages. There's the application FAQ, the resource page. Use Control F for the topic that you're looking for, and that might help you find it. And if not, please always email us. We are always happy to help, but know that we have made these materials available on purpose because we want to make sure you have what you need. All right, and when should I start? The answer is now. We do see students who open, the week it's due and can be successful. However, it's very stressful. And so we don't wish that for you. We want you to have the time to do this properly. What I hear often from students is they might open it, but they might wait to do certain sections because they think, oh, I can't do that yet for whatever reason. Let me shut some of that down. One, yes, you can request your recommendations now. Even if you haven't finished your project, even if you're not back in school, there are, your recommenders can also save their forms. They do not have to complete them in one sitting. And there are questions that they probably can answer now, even if there are some that they might want to wait to answer till the deadline. But this gives them a little more time to fill it out, see what questions are going to be asked, and mentally prepare and block their time too, because it's more than a 10-minute form and they're going to need that time. So do the adults a favor, fill that out. Same with high school counselors. When you're requesting the high school report, which is essentially a transcript request, students will say, I can't request that yet because my fall semester grades aren't in. Well, guess what? We're not going to look at your fall semester grades. We're only looking at your grades through the end of junior year. So go ahead and submit that form for your counselor. Maybe some counselors are off for the summer, but I happen to know that many do work during the summer. So help them out and they can get that done for you and check it off the list. And then the application itself, like Elaine said earlier, there are so many sections that you can do in an hour or less, or even like 20 minutes or less in some cases. So click around, fill them out. Like, if you've got an hour to kill, it's a great thing to do. So we do recommend that. Again, here are some resources. Take a screenshot as where the best places where you can find us. And we are here for you. We are excited to see the work that comes in this year. And know, this should be another great batch. So keep it up. With that, Elaine, I don't know if we have any questions today from any live viewers or not, but if so, we're happy to answer them.
We do have a couple in the chat, so we will go ahead and take a couple of these. Let me see. A question from Ayan for you, Allie. Can I show a real machine that I developed?
Sure. So a couple things. We do not have a video component of our application. So sometimes this can be a hurdle for some students to get over. If you have an invention that you want to show how it works, you're going to have to upload a lot of pictures in your paper and describe how it functions. Anywhere in the application, we don't allow links, so you can't link to like additional web pages to share more information or share your whatever. So that would be your only challenge. If you created a machine you invented, the thing to consider is if you tested it with people. And if you used people to test it who are not you, then you're going to have needed IRB pre-approval. So check out our rules book about that. And we're happy to answer any other questions by email.
Awesome. I will go ahead and take our next one from Juhi. Can a student submit two separate projects in the same category? Answer to that is no. You do have to decide on one project to submit along with your STS application. So in that case, we really do recommend thinking about which project you are the most passionate about, which one you have the most to say about, and are most excited to share. We also do have opportunities within the application to talk about prior research experiences. Both the section where you can list, boom, 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 all of the research projects that you've been involved in if you have been so lucky as to have done those in the past. But also you can make them part of short answer responses and essays if you wish to. So definitely do have to submit just the 120-page research paper, but you for sure can talk about all your other scientific experiences. Let me pull up the next question here for you, Allie. Can a student apply for Regeneron STS and Regeneron ISEF on the same project?
Totally, yes, we allow that. Our criteria is very different. And so you see different students excel in both programs. Certainly there's some crossover because you can still be the kind of kid we're looking for and be the best at ISEF. But to break it down more clearly, ISEF looks for the best research done by a high school student around the world within a 1-year period, 1 year. STS looks for future leaders in STEM who are 12th graders in the US. And the project can actually, we didn't say this before, the project can have been conducted any year of high school over any length of time. So another reason our results don't always match the ISEP results is because you might have a student submitting, a project they did their freshman year that was very strong against projects other kids did their junior year or whatever, vice versa. So yeah, totally. We encourage you to do that.
Awesome. All right, we have one final question and actually a very good one to end on. Is this presentation going to be recorded? Yes, so all of our webinars live forever on our YouTube page. They'll be at the same link that we send out. So basically, as soon as we end this session, you can go back and watch it again whenever you need to. You all, if you're watching this, you should have signed up for our for links to receive these webinars every day that they're live. But if you can't join us live for whatever reason, always happy to have you take a look at them later. All right, and I think that's it.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. We're, like we said, so excited that you're here on this STS journey with us and wish you all the best and have a happy summer. Bye-bye. See you next time.